Hi, my name is Ashira,
Hi, my name is Jasmine,
and
and
this
this
is
is
our
our
hip
hip
hop
hop
interview.
interview.
Guys, so today we're here with Easy, also known as YFR Easy. So we're gonna hand over to him, and he's gonna do a little intro on himself before we get into our interview.
Hi everyone, it's YFR Easy here. Um, I'll be answering some of the questions that Inshira and Jasmine have both said to me about hip hop and the whole culture of it. Um, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, but I grew up around Inglewood and moved to Carson, California, majority of my life. I kind of got into music pretty much at a young age. I come from a musical background from my father's side. So music just kind of came to me, and I grew up listening to a bunch of up and coming or older artists and younger artists. So it kind of inspired me to make my own kind of music.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Okay, our first question is, how has hip hop made an impact on the current state of the world?
Hip hop has made a big statement on the world because in hip hop, there's many genres where the artist can talk about whatever they like. It can be based on their political views, it can be about their community, or it can even be about fashion or the stuff that they grew up around. So it just make a big impact just on what the artist is talking about, so to speak. So it's more of their experiences or what they enjoy talking about in general.
Okay, thank you for that. So our second question is: do you think hip hop should be an inclusive or an exclusive genre?
Now, whenever I hear a question like that, it's kind of like I'm kind of half and half on it, right? In reality, there's no gatekeepers in hip hop as much as we want to gatekeep, our culture. We can't really gatekeep it because, hip hop is for everyone to listen to, whether the listener understands the creative struggles or not. Music is easily accessible, but I guess from a moral standpoint, like we tend to gatekeep our art because when a lot of people try to get access to it, it kind of can get misconstrued, or people can just have their own think pieces and have their own opinions on it, even to the point where like it has absolutely nothing to do with the artist made the song for. So I guess more so like we can't really gatekeep. I know there are people who want to gatekeep, but realistically you can't really gatekeep because music is easily accessible for everyone to listen to.
Okay, so what does hip hop mean to you?
Hip hop means a lot to me. Like I said before, I grew up in Inglewood, California, and I was listening to a lot of hip hop, mainly the early 2000s. I was listening to a lot of Pharrell and the Neptunes group he was in. I was listening to a lot of Easy E, and I was listening to a lot of NWA. Pretty much a lot of 90s hip hop too. And I guess my taste like grew over. So I kind of listened to pretty much whatever that had like a good, beat to it or whatever melody it was. So it meant a lot to me just because, the artist can make a song that's somewhat relatable to me, or I just like how they say a certain phrase or how they say a certain, word. So it just kind of just meant everything to me. I grew up around it, and the people around me growing up.
Okay, thank you so much for that very thoughtful answer. So for our next question, I want to ask you: so, what, in your perspective, makes a great hip hop record? And to that knowledge as well, like how do you use that in your making of a record?
Well, first things first. I guess nowadays that people have like a lot of like low attention span, so I guess the beat has to catch on first. Like you can't make a good hip hop record if you have a good beat. If I can say the most lyrical, miracle, spiritual thing, or if I can just say like really like real stuff or real poetry, it doesn't mean anything unless there's a good beat towards it. That's what kind of makes the record a record. And producing also plays a big part in it. So for me, how I inflect that into my music is more of like so like usually like I'm not that very good at producing. I'm just learning to get into producing. So I would have friends who would send me beats, or I would just go and surf on YouTube to find some. So either which way is which, but usually I just find like a nice beat. I write to it. Sometimes I'm humming the melody or just mumble it before I get into the writing process of it. So I guess if I can make it relatable and catchy, that gets a lot of replay value from the listener. So that's what I try to do. I try to make it as addictive and catchy as possible.
Okay. So, how do you discern that hip hop was the right genre for you in your artistic expression?
You know what? I think is like I said before, it's kind of like what I grew up around. You know, I feel like each listener had people who listen to music in general. They had different experiences. You know, there's people who is a big fan of country who's not going to understand hip hop. You know, and there's people who listen to alternative that's not going to relate to hip hop. So I guess it just mattered to the people I was listening to. Like I grew up listening to a lot of like these popular artists. I listened to Amine. I listened to Kyle back in the day, the Lil Yachty's and Uzi, and all. You know, during the era when SoundCloud was coming in, like when I was in high school, that's when it started being, you know, more implemented into my life. So, I guess I wouldn't say that hip hop is necessarily like the genre for me because at the end of the day, I believe that I am a versatile artist. I can branch out to other genres if I choose to. So, but primary hip hop just, you know, is a lot. And it contributed to my life in many ways.
Thank you so much. So for our next question, it is who are the paramount figures influencing your work within the realm of hip hop? So just like explain that in simple terms, like who are the people that you look up to? Because I know we heard you say NWA, Easy E, all those people, Pharrell, the Neptunes. But who are paramount figures? Who are people in the hip hop realm that like influence your work and influence the way you do music?
Okay. Well, one of the artists I want to give my credit and my flowers to is Tyler the Creator because when he came into the hip hop scene, a lot of people saw him as like a nuance or a weirdo because he didn't fit the stereotype of what a hip hop rapper should be, and just seeing how he kind of mixes fashion into his music when he did the Golf Wing and his whole group, his collective, Odd Future, it kind of like, you know, influenced a bunch of edgy teenagers, like, you know, rebellious teens. So, and also for his fashion sense, because fashion also ties into it. So Tyler Creator is one of my inspirations. And I also want to give my flowers to Pharrell too, just of how he grew up in Virginia, how his grandmother told about his first drum set, and kind of like, you know, trusted his vision because, you know, his grandma knew that he was going to be destined to do great things. And also, Kanye West in the early 2000s when he made his College Dropout and when he made his Yeezus album too as well. Just showing like, you know, when you come into an industry and you start with something that's like different that no other people has heard before, it's easy for people to like clown it and to like, you know, say it's trash and not that good. But in all honesty, like I guess it kind of just they taught me how like if you believe you can do anything, you can do everything. So it wasn't even just like the music speaking for themselves. It's more of like their personality. Like you can listen to artists and they have like a really trash personality, or there's artists who make really good music, bad music, and you know they have a great personality. So I guess their character, you know, they kind of like showed me how to be my true self. As much as I gave credit to NWA for the hip hop scene around me, I do want to give my personal flowers to Kanye, Tyler Creator, and also Kendrick Lamar, just showing how his cinematography when he shows his music videos for his songs, it's always like when you're watching his videos, there's like a double entendre or like a secret meaning behind a certain message, which people aren't gonna get, but if you get it, you get it. And one thing I loved about Kendrick is that sometimes you don't really have to explain much. You kind of let the work speak for itself, and the public can start their think pieces on it. Rather than he could have easily just hopped on Twitter or just did an interview and just explained why he did certain things. But one of the reasons what I like about his personality and his character is that he doesn't be in a lot of interviews. He kind of just let his work speak for himself, which I find that very commendable.
Okay. Are you able to tell me what the biggest challenge you faced as a hip hop artist is?
I guess the biggest challenge I face as a hip hop artist is, I guess, more of like fear. Because, you know, when you start off with something new, when you first start things out, like you kind of have self-doubt in yourself, thinking like, okay, what if it's not going to work? Or who's even going to care if I put this out? Because you yourself are your own like worst critic. Like, if I come out here and say, oh, I want to start a business, and I'm already having second thoughts about, oh, who's going to support this business? Who's going to, like, care? Like, what if it's just a waste of time and money? And the thing about life is that you just got to take risk. So the flaws that I dealt with was, like, I used to get very, like, offended when people wouldn't like the music I put out. And it kind of made me, like, second guess, like, okay, what am I really doing this for? Do I have, like, a certain motive? Or what do I, plan to do with the music I put out? And I kind of came to a realization that, like, not a lot of people was gonna like the music I put out, and that's perfectly fine. If I clearly want to make something, why not just make it? So I feel like at the end of the day, if I like what I'm putting out, that's all that matters. Because everyone's a critic. You're not gonna get like 100% support. So if you like putting out the art out, that's okay. Because once you put your art out, it's kind of like not yours anymore. It's for the public to perceive it.
Okay. Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about your music, about your discography, anything that you just like would want people to know?
Perfect. Just recently, I dropped a mixtape called Evergreen, and when making a project like that, I kind of wanted to talk about self-growth in me as an artist, because I've had people who listened to me back in 2020 to like 2022. Around 2020, I kind of wasn't like taking like music like seriously. I was kind of just making a lot of like jokes and just like a lot of meme rap, people would say. Like, I kind of didn't really take music seriously, because before I was a teenager. So like, what could a teenager like me really talk about? So I was just like rapping and just talking about dumb stuff. So I guess as I got older, I kind of had to sit down and be like, okay, what do I want my music to sound like? So I kind of treated Evergreen like a journal entry with some of the songs. Like, some of the songs that was on that mixtape was kind of like a diary of what I was going through at the time. So I guess, making the mixtape kind of reminded me of Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers, because it showed that when an artist gets into their most vulnerable state and they put that into their music, it shows like a lot of growth. So I guess Evergreen just showed a lot about growth and the trials and tribulations I went through while making this project. My close people know about the stuff I went through, so I kind of put it all into like writing. And as far as my discography, I guess when you listen to some of the lyrics, you may see me as like a toxic human being, but I guess more so I'm just kind of like telling a story, not just for me. I kind of just like write a story about like people in my life, or just telling a story in general. So I guess the first impression when you listen to it is like, oh, this guy's toxic, which I don't consider myself as one. It's kind of more of just like me just telling the story.
Okay. How do you feel about the influence of social media on hip hop artists today?
I feel like social media is good and it's also bad for hip hop. Like, for example, when artists, drops like a project, an album, one of the things that's kind of like irritating is when I go on Twitter and social media, they talk about the first week sales. So they think, oh, because you sold this much the first week, that determines how good you are as an artist. And I feel like, stuff like that shouldn't even be put out to the, out in public. But like, people on the internet can be like very annoying sometimes, but I understand also that with the help of social media, that's how your life can be changed in a matter of like seconds. So I guess like there's also a toxic community. Is like a lot of things in the hip hop community, they kind of pick and choose. They don't play the same rules for just everyone, right? Like, it's more so like someone can be of a different race and they can hop in a space like that and kind of accumulate more attention than an average person who looks like me trying to do the same thing. They kind of like pick and choose who they want to be famous and what they promote and push out.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Any last words that you'd like to say to us or to anybody?
Yes. Thank you all for having me on this interview. Make sure you stream the mixtape Evergreen. I worked really hard on it. And also, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't let anyone try to knock you off your campaign. And if you like what you put out, that's all that matters. So.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye. Bye.